to Matt Rowe. He, like I said, is he's the chair of the first CD district, which has changed a little bit. And he is also a recently elected school board member for Fredericksburg. So he's pretty much, well-versed in lots of interesting topics going on in the state. But the most important topic is redistricting and what it means for us and where are we voting and how things will change and how quickly or slowly things are moving. So I feel blessed to have Matt. He once ran as a candidate for the first district a few years back, and ever since then has continued to help us grow our Democratic presence. So Matt, the floor is yours. Yeah, like I said, I don't know how long you'll be speaking before Congresswoman comes on, but the floor is yours. Thank you.
There we go, unmute. All right, well, thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. And it's so good to see so many of you again. Sorry, it's been a couple years since I've seen a lot of you in person. I hope I get to sometime in the not too distant future. I'll speak, I'll take a little personal privilege real quick and just say that, it has been wonderful being able to serve CD1 as CD1 chair for the past almost 5 years now. And I'm very sorry that I'm now in a new congressional district, the 7th district, that has been moved farther to the north. And so me personally, I've lost all of you in Hanover and many of the other counties down in the southern part of the district. And I just want you to please understand that it has been an honor to serve you for the past 5 years. And even though I may be in a different district than you now, you are still all of my friends. And I constantly point to the Hanover Democrats as the example of how a local committee can be run. So you all have a great committee, and I will continue to hold you up as an example. But going into redistricting, let's start with the congressional map first. And Dan, I don't know if you want to do this, but I do have maps up if you want to make me a presenter, and I could start going through the DLS site. But I could also just talk about it as well. Okay.
You got it.
All right. Let's see. What do I do here to be a presenter? I need to request it, or
no, you just share. You should. I just opened it up.
There it is. Got it. Okay. Give me 1 second. All right. Can you see the congressional map now?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So let's start with your district. And sorry to tell you, your districts, because as many of you know, you've been split between the 1st district and the 5th congressional district. The 1st district, for the most part, is about roughly 45% of the old CD1. So it still incorporates the majority of the Northern Neck, the Middle Peninsula, and more of the peninsula now. It brings in the city of Williamsburg, parts of James City County, York, and Poquoson from CD2. That makes up about 10, 11, 12% of the district. And then the other part is the portions of Henrico and Chesterfield that come in from CD7. That's about 43% of the district. So generally, it's half CD1, half CD7 with just an icing of CD2 on top. Rob Whitman does intend on running for re-election there. He lives in Montrose, which is up in Westmoreland County. Abigail Spanberger also has her primary residence in Henrico. And for that reason, she has decided to move up to CD7, the new CD7, which is basically the northern half of CD1, plus portions of the old CD7 here and a little bit of CD5 north of Charlottesville. Back to CD1, it has gotten perhaps a smidge more Republican than the old CD1. Not to say that there aren't large Democratic areas that have been incorporated into the district, especially in Williamsburg, parts of York County, Midlothian, the West End, but it did not get some of the very, very Democratic parts that were part of CD7, say Lakeside and Henrico, or areas closer to Chippenham Parkway and Chesterfield. Those were very blue precincts that have now been incorporated into Doug McEachin's 4th district. For those reasons, that's why CD1 has gotten a little bit more Republican. It may, over the next decade, trend more Democratic as those precincts in Midlothian and the West End keep naturally moving it more into the Democratic column, but it will be a little bit slower. So not to be negative about that, but it's trading those areas for a very, very blue Prince William County that had been part of CD1 was a net positive for Republicans in that regard. For those of you more out in the Beaver Dam area that are now in CD5, your district is very focused on Charlottesville, Lynchburg, Danville, and most of the a lot of South Side and Piedmont of Virginia. That is Bob Good's district. He is from the Lynchburg area. You know, as many issues as Rob Whitman has, Bob Good is a special kind of Republican that you'll unfortunately get to know about. He is more in the vein of, say, a Marjorie Taylor Greene than anybody else. Just he's not good at publicizing himself as much, so you don't hear about him as much. But this is also still a fairly Republican district. Even though it incorporates Charlottesville and Albemarle County, they generally stand alone in the district. So again, not to be too overly negative about the prospects of the congressional races over time, but it is a tough thing for you guys with the districts that you've been given. Spanberger's district, the one that's been moved up here, the new CD7, is a very, very lean Democratic district. If anything, it's actually a bit more favorable of a district than the old CD7. But this will be a tough year, and this will be probably one of the most high-profile races in the country going into the 2022 midterms. So far, we know that Congressman Spanberger's decided to run for re-election in this district. There could be other big names that also decide to run for the Democratic nomination as well. And a couple of Republicans have put their names in, notably of which is Bryce Reeves, state senator from the Spotsylvania, Fredericksburg area. Going to the rest of the state, I gotta tell you, like, there have been changes to the congressional district lines, but you know, if you look at the old map of the districts, and you look at the new map, you can more easily identify which district is which. The 3rd district down here, Bobby Scott's district, it's, you know, that's Bobby because it still incorporates a lot of the urban areas of Hampton Roads. This is Elaine Laurier's district, District 2. It has gotten a little bit more Republican. She will have a fight on her hands to defend this seat, but it is still winnable for Democrats. Don McEachin's 4th district, still incorporates Richmond, Petersburg, and areas to the south. He will have no problem defending that. The 9th district is still Southwest Virginia. The 6th district is still the Shenandoah Valley down to Roanoke. Those are solidly Republican. The 8th and the 11th have been kind of squeezed more up, closer to Washington for Don Beyer and Jerry Connolly. Those will be safe. And then Jennifer Wexton's 10th is a little less Democratic than it was before, but way better than it was in the first set of maps that came out that had her district going all the way down to Charlottesville. That district was a toss-up district. This one is, if you follow Cook Political Report PBI, is a D+8. She should be fine going forward. So for the most part, the districts are a wash. For Democrats, the 7th got a little bit better and the 2nd district got a little bit worse. So we still have the opportunity as Democrats to win 7 congressional districts in Virginia on a good year. And in a pretty bad year, we could go down as low as 5. It's very unlikely we would ever go down lower than that. So we are assured 5 districts on the congressional level and 7 districts in a really good year. Does anybody have any questions before I talk about more of the legislative lines?
Matt, can you tell us where the line is in Hanover that separates the 1st and Goods district from Hell?
Yeah. Well, Ashland is in the first. There's Ashland right there. In fact, I believe part of the town boundary does form the congressional district line on the north side of town. It does not go up as high as Doswell there, but it follows the precinct line. I forget the name of the precinct, but this is the South Anna River right here that separates the 1st and the 5th, goes north of Ashland, and then kind of jumps down here. Rockville is in the 5th, Beaver Dam is in the 5th, and parts of the South Anna district are in the 1st there, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I think, what is Hanover's population? About 110 right now, something like that. I think 92,000 of you are in the 1st, so that would only leave about 18,000 in the 5th. It's the vast majority of folks in Hanover are in the 1st district, and just that very, very rural part of the county up in the northwest, that's in the 5th.
Matt, I have a question. Was the aim to more evenly assign the population as a whole, or was it a real knockdown drag out as to where the lines were drawn?
Well, if you saw the differences between the first proposed map that came out from the special masters and this one, it is obvious that they did take into account some of the major criticisms that Virginia citizens put into that first map that came out. Because in that one, you saw the 1st district was going all the way west of Fluvanna. You saw the 10th district coming down to Charlottesville. It was not a good map. It's not to say that any map is ever going to be fully embraced by everybody, but this map was an improvement on that. And even though, say, the 1st district does look funny, I mean, I think we can all agree that it does look funny with the hook coming around the west side of Richmond. It does at least lump in together 2 communities. You still have the river, for the most part, Northern Net, Middle Peninsula. That is a community unto itself. And then you have generally the suburbs of 2 major metropolitan areas. You have Williamsburg, which is a suburb basically of Hampton Roads. And then you have the suburbs of Richmond to the west side. It is a suburban rural mixed district that makes a little bit more sense than the first iteration of that. Of course, the big thing they have to do is to equalize population, but it also needs to be something that makes some reasonable amount of sense in terms of the communities that are drawn together. I think this does a better job, but you know, this is still created by 2 special masters that were 1 Democrat, 1 Republican. It would have been greatly different of a map had we retained control of the redistricting process in the General Assembly as Democrats.
Matt, I have a question too. I wanted to ask you, I thought I saw somewhere like polling wise that the 1st district is now like R+7. And I was wondering, like, how many years down the road do you think it could ever be competitive and like a really good Democrat year? I know, you know, considering what's happened now and like the current environment, maybe not, but maybe like, you know, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years down the road. I was just wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
I think a lot of it depends on the growth patterns of the suburbs of Hampton Roads and Richmond. So the rural parts of the district, the Northern Neck, Middle Peninsula, that makes up about 20–25% of the district. You're not going to see a lot of growth out there, and if anything, you're going to see that turn more and more Republican over time, if that's even possible. But we did see that in the last gubernatorial election, that places that are heavily Republican can continue to become more Republican. But yeah, let's talk about Richmond a little bit. Some of the work that Spanberger put into flipping these areas is catching on. And you do see a lot of these precincts, even up around Short Pump and farther out down Hull Street Road into the Brander Mill area. There is potential for Democratic growth in these areas as the patterns of development change a little bit. You're still seeing sort of those huge McMansion-y kind of subdivisions that don't tend to help Democrats electorally. You're not seeing quite as many of those anymore. Now you're seeing more dense housing, where you still have single family homes and townhomes and apartment complexes a little bit more mixed in together. Those kinds of developments tend to draw in more Democrats on the first time, rather than those classic, more early 2000s, late 90s kind of subdivisions that were more typical of these areas. If we see more growth like that, I think that there's a chance that Henrico and Chesterfield can continue to become more Democratic in those areas. And you can also see the same thing down in Williamsburg as well. This is also a pretty fast growing area and has a development style not too dissimilar from Henrico and Chesterfield. So 5 or 6 years, I think, is, I'll put it this way. When Whitman decides that he doesn't want to run for re-election, I think that provides our best opportunity to flip that if we can get a good candidate, and if the Republicans maybe put somebody up that's a little bit more toxic, that will provide our first opportunity. But when he's out, we will be a lot closer and can make a better case at capturing the district. So yeah, possibly in a few cycles. All right. Well, I'll just briefly go over the other maps as well. So we have this is the house map. And so generally, and apologies, this is just from the DLS site. So these two districts here are kind of the same color, but please understand that King William is in this district and Hanover and New Kent are in this district. So for you guys, you've got District 60, which is basically the successor to the 97th district. Interestingly enough, Wyatt and Fowler have both been drawn into this district. I don't know if any of you have had any intelligence on if one of them plans to move or if one of them plans to step down or anything like that. This is definitely the successor to Wyatt's district. So the ball's kind of in Buddy's court. I believe that the 59th does not have an incumbent. I'll have to double check on that. But for instance, Buddy Fowler could move over into the 59th, but moving your life is not always that easy. But you can always just rent an apartment and say, oh, that's my home. We see that all the time with people that have been drawn out of districts or want to go run in a more favorable district. Interestingly enough, the 59th also does include a little bit of Glen Allen. And then kind of as we talked with the congressional stuff, this is getting more built out, and there are opportunities for a lot of Democrats to move into this area. You would need a lot to offset the entirety of the western part of Hanover and the portions of Louisa here, but I would definitely keep an eye on this district. Maybe not soon, but a little bit later in the decade, because there could be opportunities there. It also includes Ashland as well. So there are Democratic pockets in that district. Still an uphill climb, but possibilities definitely exist. The 60th is still, that's going to be pretty tough. But the 59th, keep your eye on that. That could be something. And for state Senate, unfortunately, the one thing that y'all in Hanover loved was having a state senator that could at least represent a portion of your district. You had Don McEachin for a long time, and you have Jennifer McClellan right now. That district, the old Senate District 9, has been drawn back into Henrico. So now you have this sprawling district that kind of goes from, Chamberlain all the way down to throughout James City County, all the way to the Bay through Gloucester and Matthews. And this district, I believe, includes 3 different incumbents for state Senate. I'll have to double check that. And then you have this sprawling district out here, District 10. It makes sense as a rural district. It brings in a lot of different rural communities together, all the way from Appomattox and Farmville, going all the way up to Lake Anna and then back down to Ashland. It's a very geographically large district and brings in many counties. Let's see. I do want to look up real quick, and I think I can find this. I do want to see how many state senators you have in that one district. It is, I think it was
At least, yeah, it's at least 2. I think McDougal and Norman gone into the same one. Yeah.
That's right. This is the one that's McDougal and Norman, right? Okay, and the one over in District 10 doesn't have any incumbent in that district. And then for the House, by the way, I'm on VPAP right now. I know many of you use VPAP. It is one of the greatest websites known to political junkies. Yeah, so it's Fowler and Wyatt are in 60th and no one in the 59th. So yeah, that's generally where we are right now. Does anybody have any questions about the legislative district lines?
I want to pause there just for a moment, Matt. Can you stop chair just for a second? I think Congresswoman Spanberger is coming on right now, and it's a good stopping point to like pause because you gave us a lot to digest right here. And it would be helpful if you can send out that link. I know people can access it themselves, but sometimes it's nice to have that available. Congresswoman Spanberger, yes, I see her name on the call, so I hope she's still with us.